Hello and welcome back to the third video in the Claude Cowork course. Now it is time that we start looking actually into Claude Cowork, into the user interface, the command center for your personal AI agent. So we are here in the tasks interface, right? If you install Claude Desktop on your computer and you switch here in the model selector or mode selector, right, you can switch and you're going to land here. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to is up here, we can change between the different modes in Claude, right? So if you go to chat, you have the normal chat interface where you can ask questions and get text answers. It's basically the same like you would usually have in ChatGPT. If you go to Cowork, right, if you select Cowork here, then this is the user interface that we get. This is, of course, what the book and this course are all about. And then you would have another mode, which would be code. So Claude Code on your desktop, which is not in the terminal, but in Claude Desktop, which is also interesting. But of course, this course is all about Claude Cowork. So this is where we're going to stay. The next thing I want to draw your attention to is down here, right? We have the entry field where we can basically describe the task that we want Claude Cowork to make, and it is going to do it for us. So, of course, this is where your prompt comes in. And here they're just giving you a few ideas about kind of the typical tasks that Claude Cowork could take over for you. Then there's this here, work in a folder. I will show you live in a second, but this is, you click here on the plus, and then you can pick a folder on your computer in which Claude Cowork is going to work for this project and where it was going to have file access, right? Which it needs, but only file access in this folder. Then here we can choose the model that Claude is working with, which if you have a pub subscription, I would suggest you use Opus 4.6. This is at the beginning of March 2026, right? So the models might change. But you can choose, and the best models right now are Sonnet 4.6 and Opus 4.6. This screenshot is a little older, don't get confused. Then if you click down here, you could create a few connections between Cowork and other tools, but that's for another video. Up here, we have the progress bar. So when Claude takes over your task, it will usually start with a plan and subdivide the overall objective into number of steps that it is going to make. And it's then going to list those tasks up here and mark them as completed once they're done. I will show you that again live in the sample test we'll do in a second. Here's the working folder, right? So if there's output files that Cowork has created, they are going to be listed here. Context, those are additional files that you can select, right? If you want to give Cowork more context for this task. It could also be a source file that you want Claude Cowork to work on. For example, I often give it a book manuscript that I wanted to format in a certain way. And then down here, you might either have suggested connectors that Claude can use within this task, right? But you could also have listed skills, and we're going to look at what skills are later. But if you have a skill, a repeatable process that you have taught Claude, it will list it here, that it is using it to work for in this task. All right, so that's the user interface. Now let me show you this actually live here for a second. So I have it in a smaller one now, but I can change here between chat, Cowork, and code. And here I can work in a folder. And I could also include a project. I could do other things. Here I can pick the model. And obviously, if I have the prompt and everything ready, I would just click here. So that's just repetition. What I just showed you, right? For one is we have the mode selector. You can switch between chat, tasks, and code. The task input field, you type your task description or your prompt. The folder selector, which is you choose in which folder Cowork is going to work and have access to for this task. Progress tracker at the right up, will list the number of tasks it is going to do for reaching the overall task and when it has completed them. And the file outputs is where files that Orc has created will be listing them. The folder selector. So I just want to draw your attention again to this, right? We've said it before, but again, I'm sorry for hammering this principle down. It's just so important when you consider working with Claude Cowork, right? The first thing you always do when you start a new task is that you pick the folder in which Cowork is going to work and where it will have access to on your computer, right? So even if there are no files that you give it access to as an input or as context, you still want to pick a folder in which it is going to work because this is the folder that it is going to store the files in. If you don't do that, Cowork is going to work in a temporary folder, and when you close Cowork, that file is usually lost, right? So you always want to pick the folder first before you do anything else. So scope, Cowork sees everything inside the folder, including subfolders, nothing outside, right? So if you have files, the subfolders in this folder, it will also have access to them. Flexibility. So if you create a new task, you can pick a different folder, right? But within the task, you only have that folder to work with. But you can upload additional tasks, files, if they're outside of the folder and you want to work with them. The best practice is to start with a test folder and use files you don't mind experimenting with, right? So that's just a good way to get started with Cowork. And then keep in mind that it will always need your approval before it makes changes to any existing files. Progress tracker, right, the one at the right top. We'll look at that in more detail soon, but basically it is going to list tasks. And once it is done with a task, it will strike it through, and then you know it has done this task, it has done this task, and now it is doing this task, and this one will follow next. That's very useful. So let's go live into Claude Cowork. I will show you the model selector. So, sorry. This is, if you click here, you could upload files and photos and other things. If you click here, you can pick the folder, right? So I created Claude Cowork test. And then here I have a messy downloads folder, right? So just to show you, in this folder, I have a number of files, text files, CSV files, etc., that I wanted to order for me now. So I don't pick a file. In fact, I cannot pick an individual file. I can pick a folder. So I go here, I click on open. And now this is important. Do I allow Claude to change files in messy downloads, right? Claude will be able to read, edit, and permanently delete and may share file contents with third-party tools it connects to. Be careful about exposing sensitive information. So I recommend you strongly. First of all, you check the folder again, it's the right folder. In this case, it is. And I do not have sensitive data in that folder, so I'm okay giving it access to this. But I don't pick always allow, right? I pick allow. So just now that I'm working in this task on this folder, I give it access to this folder and the right to read, edit, and permanently delete files in this folder. I click on allow. Now, basically, it has access to these files. And now as a sample task that I want to do, I have prepared a prompt, which is basically here. I say, hi, Claude, please have a look at my messy downloads folder and come up with a plan, right? So I first tell it to come up with a plan to order these files into subfolders in a structure that is logical and helps me to find these files again later. You can also suggest how you would maybe rename the files, right? But again, I'm saying suggesting, so I'm looking for a plan and suggestions. Just for safety, again, I tell it, but do nothing without my permission. Come up with a plan first. And you can also still say, and ask for permission. All right. Now I have the best model for now. I click on Let's Go. And now you can not only see it live in action, but in a second, we are going to see, right. So down here, you can see that it is organizing files. It's listing files in the folder. We are seeing what it's working with. And in a second, we should also see, right, so if you click here, you see this is a new task. Yeah. And by the way, as we're on the user interface, so here you can open, close the bar. We can create a new task. We can search. So we have full text search in existing tasks. We could even schedule tasks to be run every day, every week, every month at a certain time. We will look into this later and customize as additional settings. But for now, the action is here, right? So let me take a look at what's in the folder first. Part of collection. Let me read through the files to understand what's actually in each one. All right. So now it's telling me my folder has 22 files that fall into roughly 6 categories. There's also a duplicate file. Then it suggests the subfolders it would create, and not only the files it would move into that folder, but it also suggests the file name changes, which I think in this case it would capitalize for making it just a little easier to read. Work, personal. All right, so we got a structure in subfolders based on topic. We would capitalize some of the letters or rename in a few cases to make the file names more explicit, I guess. Now, obviously, I have this folder backed up. This is just a sample project. Now, if you do this task, look over it. If you don't agree, you can tell it some changes that you want to make. But for the sake of this video, I'll say that I'm okay with this. And then I will just say, yes, please go ahead with making those changes. Show me in the progress bar how you go about it step by step. Now, I'm a little irritated that I haven't gotten the progress bar yet, but probably we will get it anyway now if we execute the task actually, right? Because I want you to be able to see those fields here as well. That's just additionally why I'm telling it to show me the progress bar. But let's go about it. And while we're doing that, let me just change to the live folder so you can actually see where we are here. Plot core messy downloads, right? So I want you to be able to see how this files here are changing, right, while it's working. So that you actually see how it's making the changes. So we go about this. We get the progress bar. Right, so here we are. My bad, right? So now you see it here. It has a progress bar. It will work through the tasks one by one. Here it's listing us the files that we have. Here would be more context. And just so you see how the changes are happening, I have this here live. Right, so you see the changes are being made. Here it's working through the steps. Maybe let me just show here, running command, right? So it's telling me here what it's doing. And we see how files are being moved into newly created folders. Now it's doing the photo files. And also keep in mind that I'm doing real time, right? So this takes maybe 1 or 2 minutes. And the important thing is you don't need to have this window open. And right now you don't need to be here. You could just click, you could do anything else on your computer, or you could just click on new task and work in a new session, basically with Cowork, or in a new task and let it do something else. If you want to have online research right now, it could do the same at the same time. But, right, remember it told us that there's 1 or 2 files which are duplicate, which it would delete, and it might delete the file, right? But it is explicitly asking us for permission. Do we allow Claude to permanently delete the files? I will say allow, right? But again, it has asked you for permission, so it has deleted nothing without your consent. I click allow. And let's see which file it will delete. All right. So here we're at this step 7, right? If you want to know more details, you can click here and follow it more specifically as it's reasoning and explaining to you what it does. And in a second, we should be done here. Once again, you see we now have a very clean file structure. We have capitalized letters, right? So it has ordered these files for us. Now we would have notification. It's telling us that it's done. And here again, it is explaining what it has done, right? So here is a simple sample task in Cowork that shows you the user interface, its function, the progress bar, the working folder. So those things are really useful. Right. So let me close this. Yeah, those are the elements of the user interface. Obviously, there's the settings and there's skills, but we will get to that in later videos. So next comes installing Flat Desktop on your computer so you can work on it yourself, which we are going to look at in the next video.